Okay, I think we'll get started. I want to thank you all for coming today. Our main topic is going to be on Windows 10, and like I mentioned, there are some handouts back in my left hand on the last desk there. Before we get to the main topic, we'll cover a few club agenda items. Our next meeting is going to be on Thursday. This is, again, we're not on our normal Wednesday. That'll be April 21st, and that'll be back here in the Baltic Room. That'll be on cloud storage by Jim Holman, our president, and we will also have Subway sandwiches. So you don't want to miss that one. And I think you'll be talking about security, private cloud versus public cloud, some backup, data and apps, how some of these things work there. Also, if you're not familiar, we do have a Macintosh SIG, and their next meeting is April 22nd, and they set their agenda right before. But it's not just a Mac meeting. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, anything to do with Mac, it's a nice group to get connected with. And we have a number of people that are members of both groups, so it's not like you just have to come to one of the meetings or be in just one group there. Our officers, Jim Holman is our president, and I don't see Jim here yet. Linda Brown is our vice president. Our membership secretary is Paul Ebert, and Paul's up in front there. Mike Griffin is our treasurer and MacSig. Stan Miller is our secretary. Don't see Stan there. Andrew Pertusi is our communications coordinator, and my name is Tom Kreuzer. I'm a director at large. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul up in front there. Also a reminder, if you are changing your email, make sure and notify Paul or myself, and I'll get it to Paul, because that's the way we keep in touch with everybody is through email. And if we have an old email or you're changing providers, make sure you let us know there. Also, I think we're going to be adding a link for... Okay, the PayPal link. So if you do have a PayPal account and want to renew your PC Club membership, there'll be a link in the email that Paul sends out, and you'll be able to click that and send the $8 that way. So you don't have to write a check, you don't have to bring in cash. Hopefully it'll make it a little easier for some of the people there. And it is totally secure. It's like any other PayPal or that. So it should be a nice little addition there. Suggestions for topics. You can email your ideas for topics. Talk to any of the board members. If you want to volunteer to present on hardware, software, can be stuff that you use at work, can be stuff that you use at home. We're always looking for people to present in that. Also, if you don't want to present, if you just want to write a short, meaning a sentence or two or a long article, we can include it in our monthly eBytes newsletter. The website, it does have, if you missed any of our meetings, you'll find our handouts are out on our website, along with the slides themselves that I'm going over. And for most of the meetings, we record them, so they're also available out there if you want to take a look. We also have a deal section, some links to some of the vendors and discounts. And I mentioned in the last slide about eBytes, our monthly newsletter. Those are also published out there, and you can send me any tips or hints if you have a question to ask, favorite links that you want to include for sale. You can send that to me, and I'll include it in the next eBytes there. And this is the link to our website. It's also on the back of the handout, so you can take a look there. Any club questions before we get to the main topic? Okay. Our main topic today is Windows 10. Windows 10 is a successor to Windows 7 and 8. There was no Windows 9. And some of the things I've heard is, well, it's the old kids deal, 7, 8, 9. So 9 disappeared. But let's go through here. It is a free upgrade, which is unusual. Usually you're paying anywhere between $50 and $100 to upgrade from a previous version of Windows. It's currently a free upgrade, and we'll talk a little more about that later. Enterprise editions do not qualify for the free upgrade, and enterprise editions are like editions that 3M has. That has added security and a few added features. Most people have home editions and pro editions, and those are different than the Windows 7 and 8 versions that are enterprise editions. The free upgrade lasts for 1 year, and so Windows or Microsoft first made this available last July 29th of 2015. So it's scheduled to expire this year, July 29th, 2016. So if you are going to take advantage of the free upgrade, you have a limited time. It's unclear whether Microsoft will extend that, but currently it's scheduled to shut down July 29th.
Have they announced the price after that date?
They haven't announced the price after that date, and if you do update before that date, any upgrades, they come up with upgrades all the time, will be free for the life of the product. So there will never be a charge for any update after that time. No, Windows 7 and Windows 8 do have a period. I think it's usually 3 years that they support it after the next one comes out. So Windows 7 is first going to disappear, and then Windows 8 will disappear, support-wise. They won't be doing patches and things like that. So it is the version that they do want to get all of the machines on. Yes, they do. The upgrade actually is for 8.1, so you would have had to have upgraded from 8 to 8.1, but that was a free upgrade to 8.1. So yes, but it's still covered. It's still covered in the upgrade there. Any other questions on that? Or as of January 1st of this year, there were over 200 million active devices running Windows 10 worldwide. So there are a lot of PCs. This also includes tablets, Surface tablets. A lot of those are running Windows 10 and Windows phones. These are a couple of slides that I picked out of. If you didn't attend the meeting last year, we had a meeting on Windows 10 in May of 2015, and we had Microsoft in, and they presented Windows 10 and showed us what it was and things like that. And this is a couple of the slides there where it's showing that Windows 10 is intended to be a convergence of a number of these different operating systems. So like for the Xbox and Windows 8 and the phone versions, and they're all coming together in this Windows 10 version. Also, this is a slide showing Windows 10 is intended to be run on all these different devices, whether it's your desktop, laptop, tablets, phones, just about anything they'd like to have Windows 10 running on. So that's why they created the operating system. Again, this was a presentation in May of 2015. And if you didn't see the presentation or you just want a refresher, you can go out to the club website, go to past meetings, and you can see the recording and you can see the slides are also out there. Okay, this is kind of what I plan to talk about today. I'll talk about my experience upgrading from Windows 7, where I ran into some of the issues, what I like about it, and then we'll talk about should you update your PC, and then we'll also cover, if we have time, Windows 10 privacy. So there's been a number of articles on privacy that have scared some people on that, and we'll talk a little about that. Before we get in there, I will do kind of a quick introduction or review of Windows 10. And this is a YouTube video, and this YouTube video was created last year, July 2015. It's going to run about 6 minutes long, and we'll take a look at that, if I can find it here. Where are we? Where? Oh.
Windows 10 very publicly.
Okay, so that's a quick overview. A lot of stuff covered there. Before we get into the main part there, are there any questions on what you saw there? Because this can be interactive in terms of questions that you saw there.
Free Office version? That must be a stripped down version?
The free Office version is a stripped down version of Office with the essentials. They call it Office Essentials. So it doesn't have all the support of a full Office version. Any other questions? The stability that he was talking about, you have to realize too, this video was created prior to Windows 10 being released. So he was talking about the beta that he had. Since Windows has been released, there's been new versions and patches installed about once a week or every other week. So I would imagine if this was a more up-to-date, he wouldn't be talking about the problems that he saw or the errors that he saw there. Yes?
Is there any photo editing software?
There's some simple photo editing, but again, you know, if you want some of the other photo editing, the more advanced, you can load, you have your choice of either loading Windows software or loading Windows applications. So just like on the iPhone or your smartphone, you have applications for managing your photos or viewing photos. You can put Windows apps on your desktop. So you've got even more options now because it runs both applications and software. Any other questions before we go on? And feel free to ask any questions at any time.
The main question is, do we switch now or later? Eventually, if as long as we stay with Microsoft, we're going to switch to Apple. Kind of like, do we do it now or later? Eventually, we'll all be doing this?
Yeah, so the Windows 10 is the version to move forward with there. Now, just like some people are still running XP, you know, you do have some people that'll stay on an older version. But if you, to me, and you'll see a little later when I talk about it, if you have adequate hardware, and if you were running Windows 7 or Windows 8, most people have adequate hardware. If you have adequate hardware, the benefits are there for you to use.
If we go to Best Buy, we'll get a Windows 10 computer, right?
Yes, it's hard to find a computer or to buy a computer with a previous version of Windows. They can be, in some cases you can order online and you could specify an earlier version, but the general stores, laptops, desktops, are all going to be Windows 10 machines, and even a lot of the tablets and things like that. Over the holidays, you could buy a tablet, 12-inch tablet for, I believe it was $129 with Windows 10 on it. So there's all the ranges of devices out there. Okay? Okay, let's see here. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about my experience, and I did upgrade from Windows 7, and this was back in July. I had determined that I did want it as soon as it was available. What you'll see if you have Windows 7 or Windows 8, in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there's a little icon down there that says Upgrade to Windows 10. And if you click on that icon, you begin the process to update your machine to Windows 10. My machine, I mentioned, was a Windows 7 machine. It had 6 gigabytes of memory on it, and it had lots of free hard disk space. So those are the main determining factors there. I did mention back in August of 2015 in eBytes, and those eBytes, past eBytes, are out on our website. You can take a look. There's a number of articles on how to prepare for Windows 10. What you can do, what you can look at, things like that. So you can take a look there. The upgrade icon in the lower right-hand corner does not start the upgrade. What it does is it sends an email and adds you to a list to get your machine upgraded. And back in July, that upgrade could be several days or could be a week or 2 weeks. And then when your PC became eligible, you'd get a notification that your PC has downloaded the upgrade and that your machine is ready to do the install. It will not do the install until you tell it to do the install. I received my notice about August 10th, and I decided to let the upgrade run overnight. I back up my files nightly, so I was set if there were any problems. Always make sure you have your machine backed up, all your personal data and software. If you don't have disks or licenses to install, make sure you've got everything backed up. That backup could be on the cloud, could be on a hard drive, could be on flash drives, wherever you want to make sure that you have it backed up. The Windows 10 install does have an option, so even if it successfully installs everything, if you determine that you don't like it, you can go back to your old version of Windows, and it'll reset the machine back. That is only good for 30 days. So check it out, make sure everything's working. What it does after 30 days is because that backup is taking a large chunk of hard disk space and stuff like that, it deletes all that stuff after 30 days. It's determined that you don't need it anymore. And because I was sleeping, I couldn't say exactly how long it took to upgrade. I'm guessing probably 2 to 3 hours to do the upgrade. The upgrade is an upgrade in place, so it's not reformatting the hard drive and wiping out everything and forcing me to reinstall software or settings. All of those, since it's an update in place, all that stuff is meant to still be there after the update. In the morning when I checked, I had no errors or any problems, messages or anything from the update. So at that point, it was ready to use in the morning when I checked my machine. One of the things that was different, though, is my login now used my Hotmail account and password. So you can log in, and it works with a Gmail also, Gmail account and password. I happen to have both Hotmail and Gmail. If you don't want it to use an email account or that, there's a way in the installation where you can not use a standard installation and you can use a local ID and password if you want to set it up that way. But it defaults to using Hotmail or Gmail there. And that part of the reason for that is if you have multiple devices that use Windows 10, now it can share those settings and things like that with the other devices. So it's storing some of that stuff up at the cloud and making that available to the other devices. Or if you happen to, your machine happens to crash, you'd be able to get back some minimal configurations and settings because that information is up in the cloud. Yes. Yes, it'll check and see, because it checks to see kind of what accounts you have and that, and it'll use it. If it doesn't, then you'll have a local account, and if you choose later to change it, you can go into the Windows settings and you can change that also. So it's just the default, what it's doing when it sets up. It'll attempt to find some of these accounts and set it up that way. Okay? Yes.
Currently in Windows 7, I utilize Windows Live Mail so that I don't have to Will that still show itself in Windows 10?
Yeah, if you're currently using Windows Live Mail, what you'll do is part of this installation, you're going to get the new version of Windows Mail and Windows Calendar, and just like if you have a smartphone or a tablet, you can add other mails also. So if you have a Gmail account and a Comcast account, just like on your phone, you can put in multiple mail and that, you can do the same thing in the new to your mail. And so the mail doesn't have to be Microsoft. You could just have a Gmail account, and the mail will just use the Gmail account then.
Not automatically return.
No. It's just taking a look to see if you already have an MSN or a Hotmail account. Then it's going to use that over a Gmail account, for instance. Okay? Okay, the machine, at that point, after I put in my password, the machine booted fine, and I had my old desktop with exactly the icons that I had before. That was all there, and the icons were all there. So, you breathe the sigh of relief that everything's still there. And life is good. The next thing I did is, again, if you go back to the August 2015 e-bites, there's an article I put in there called 8 Windows Settings for Windows 10 You Should Change Right Away. And within this article, it talks about making a number of changes, and these are some of the changes that you're doing. You're changing restarts, and the restarts have to do with the Windows update. In the past versions of Windows, the user kind of always had control of the updates. You could choose whether to get the updates or not get the updates. And then you could choose, if you were going to get the updates, when it would look to see if there were new updates, and then how it would install them. The new version of Windows 10 does not let you pick whether you want to get the updates or not get the updates. And so it's a little bit different there. But the only thing you have control of is when it restarts the machine. And by restarting, in some cases when it does updates, it has to reboot the machine. And you can control that rebooting of the machine if you want to manually do that. If for the 3Mers, that message that you get from 3M that says there's a new install, do you want to reboot now or later? That's kind of what you can have it do. Or you can just say, like myself, I leave my PC on all the time. I just let it restart whenever it has to. So it'll restart itself and do its own reboot and install the software. The next thing they talk about is notifications. If you have a phone, you're probably familiar with notifications. When you get emails, calendar events, things like that pop up, you get beeps and tones and things like that. Well, you have notifications in Windows 10. And so it will notify you when your calendars come up, when you get email, other things that pop up. If you're watching news stories, when new news stories or scores pop up, you can have it do notifications. So you can turn that stuff, just like on your phone, a lot of those things you can turn on and off. Cortana is the voice system in Windows 10. And I'll talk a little bit later, but this is one of the things that I was really surprised about, because I didn't think I'd use it much on my desktop. I use voice commands on my phone and that, but now I found that I've been using Cortana more and more on my desktop. So it to me is really great. Part of that is training Cortana with your voice. And that's what this settings is. Edge, there's some settings on the Edge, and the Edge is the new Microsoft browser, and some of the things that can be set up there. Default apps and programs, it's just checking some of these things and getting it set right. And an option on what to sync, so it can move stuff back and forth between the cloud for you automatically. And this is where you do your settings for that. Taskbar, how it looks, and that you do have a little control there, and it has a few settings in there. But by all means, go through this article after you've installed Windows 10 and change the settings there. Okay, next we'll talk about where I ran into some issues, And after I did the install, I'm security conscious, so I was checking to see if my antivirus was still running. Yes. I'll talk a little bit about that, and if it doesn't touch, the password managers won't work in the Edge. Most of them will not work in the Edge. The Microsoft Edge browser. I use Chrome. My password manager still works fine in there. But I'll talk a little bit later why some of the stuff doesn't work in the Edge. As far as antivirus, I was surprised because to my horror I found I had no antivirus running after the upgrade. So my Norton Security, I had the Norton Security Suite in Windows 7, and I had been running that. That's free if you are an Xfinity Comcast customer, and so I had been running that all this time. And when I found out that I had no antivirus running, I did not just want to count on, there's default antivirus that comes with Windows and default firewall and that, but I wanted to be running the Norton Security Suite, so I went out to the Comcast site and I installed the Norton Security Suite that was available out there. I didn't see anything listing a version for Windows 10 at the time, and I wasn't sure if the version that I was installing was a newer version than what I had before when I was running Windows 7, but I was just hoping that it'd work there. I did the install of the version that they had out there. Everything worked fine, and my machine is now running Norton Security Suite and still running Norton Security Suite. The previous version that I had must not have been compatible with Windows 10, and I've read that in some of the articles that if you have versions that aren't compatible with 10, it doesn't migrate that to Windows 10. Would have been nice if they had mentioned as part of the upgrade that your antivirus had been taken off or warned you. It just took it off, and luckily I checked it there. Yes.
You have no
I have no problems at all with Windows 10 running Norton, the entire Norton suite.
Are you referring to the version of security that comes with Windows 10 is not very good? I use the Windows 7 Microsoft antivirus. Okay.
Yeah, the question, I'll repeat it for the recording there, was asked, am I implying that the versions that come with Windows itself aren't adequate? And yes, that's what I'm implying. They're in a scale of 1 to 10. I think most magazines and most people would give it about a 6 or maybe a 7 there. But in most cases, even if you don't have Comcast, there's free antivirus out there, AVG and things like that, that'll take you from about a 6 or a 7 up to an 8 or a 9. So I would recommend it. Now, you're certainly more protected than having nothing, but in terms of giving that full protection, full notification, full checking, on Microsoft is okay. It's just not great or very good. Yeah, I didn't have to turn it off. Most of the packages are smart enough when they do their install that they'll go through and turn off the other firewalls and anything else that's out there. So in this case, Norton, turned those off. Yeah. Okay, same question. Okay. But yeah, check your antivirus and like Paul asked, is it okay? It's okay, but I like to feel a little more protected and you can get these other packages, and especially if you're a Comcast customer, you might as well have the Norton Suite, because the Norton Suite will do more than just antivirus and that. It'll do some tuning and it'll do some other things there. Yes. It depends on what you want. Take a look at the other add-ons that come with it and determine whether you want it. So some of the other add-ons and things like that are cleaners, where it'll go through your registry and clean things, and optimize and stuff like that. And again, you can. Some of the true diehards will say, no, I don't want any of that stuff. I want to do it myself, or I don't trust what they're doing. But in general, not in general. Norton is a reputable company, and make good products there. Okay. Okay. I mentioned in here, if you check your antivirus. If you don't have stuff, make sure that's the first thing that you install or set up there. The next thing I checked on my PC was I had an old version of Microsoft Office 2002, so that goes back quite a ways. But I love it. It has Word, Excel, and PowerPoint out there. To my surprise, they all did work fine in Windows 10. I thought I'd have a problem with it where Microsoft would want me to buy or upgrade to a newer version there. Everything was working good. This gets back to the question, or in the demo I talked about the free version of Office. You get a free limited Office mobile version that comes with Windows 10. And that lets you do the basics. So if you've never used Office before, this will probably be sufficient for what you're going to need in a word processor, spreadsheet, things like that. If you've used Office before and done stuff, whether it's with macros or more of the advanced features, mobile Office, the free version here, does not have all the features and functionality that the full Office has. So Microsoft still is selling Office, different versions of Office, namely Office 365 and these other versions there. When I had originally installed my Office 2002 suite on Windows 7, it did not work on Windows 7, and I had to go out and make some manual modifications to get my Office to install there that I had found on the web. It said, go in, change these things, and because what happens if you do have some of these older versions, the Office 2002 looks at the current version of the Windows operating system, and because it doesn't know anything about Windows 10, because this was written back in 2001, it kind of says, I'm not going to install anything because I don't know how to install myself for Office 2010. For Windows 2010. So that's where I had to do this with Windows 7. But this migration went smooth. I didn't have to touch it for Windows 10. Next thing I started up on the machine is the new Microsoft browser, the Edge, which comes with Windows 10. I went to my favorites up there to test a few on my websites. Nothing in my favorites, which surprised me. But my old favorites weren't there, and I thought, what's up with this? Because almost every browser, when you install it, will have an option to copy your favorites from the other browser and things like that. Well, this migration hadn't gone through and brought anything. There was nothing in my favorites. The Edge does have an import, so I imported my IE10 favorites into the Edge, and so I did get all my links set back up there. Wasn't a big deal, but it just surprised me when I went in there that they hadn't imported. And I don't know anybody that when they set up a new machine doesn't want their old favorites set up. I mean, you can always delete stuff out if you don't use it, but they should have copied it over. The Edge seems to work fine with all my websites, as well as IE10 works and stuff like that. This gets back to the question on password managers. The one thing that wasn't working is I use a password manager called LastPass, and that didn't work with the Edge. So I didn't see an icon in there. There just was no way to get it to work there. And it turns out that the Edge does not support extensions. And so you have a number of plugins or extensions that you may have used in Internet Explorer. Those are not supported in the Edge. And part of that is for security purposes. They're trying to make it more secure, but in this case, it wouldn't let me install my password manager. Yes?
When you move your favorite on the right side, here's the left side.
Yeah, I guess I don't recall there. I believe I have it on the left side now. I don't recall what I did in there. I guess I'd suggest just Googling, put in how to move favorites to the left side, and there hopefully should be a setting or somewhere to go there. Okay, we'll take them back for.
As far as passwords with Edge, doesn't Edge have a thing that if you type in a password, Edge will remember? Like,
I don't recall in there, and I actually personally wouldn't recommend that. The reason I use LastPass and some of these others is because I want to be able to use it on my smartphone, tablet, and laptop, and I've got hundreds of them. So, it's a case of I don't want it just on the one device, and then when I change it or that, I don't want to have to remember, I changed it 3 months ago on this one, but I hadn't changed it over here. These password managers, if you don't have one, I've always recommended that you get one and use one there. Yes?
I use Thunderbird for email and Firefox for browser. Any history of those on?
You used what for email?
Thunderbird.
Thunderbird. Okay. Yes. The Firefox Mozilla will work fine in Windows 10 there. So all the versions, the current versions and stuff like that they have all work fine in Windows 10. Okay. Okay. I mentioned in here, even though I couldn't use my LastPass in the Edge, I really wasn't using Internet Explorer much except if Chrome didn't work, so it wasn't a big deal there. I tend to use Google Chrome as my main browser, and that works fine in Windows 10 and does still work with LastPass. LastPass, at the time, last August, if you went to their website, it said, we're working with Microsoft to resolve issues, and we hope to shortly have it working in there. Well, I checked just a couple of weeks ago, and it's that same message. So they haven't gotten too far in 8 months, so I don't know if they'll ever crack it to get it in there. As the demo showed, if you've got something in the Edge that isn't working, or for that matter, if you don't like the Edge, you can still run Microsoft Internet Explorer on your machine too. So you can be using IE10 or IE11, excuse me, on your PC also. Okay, where I ran into issues again, I do have an HP 2542. It's a wireless printer scanner. And I do have it connected by USB to my computer, and I use it wirelessly with my phone and tablet. I went into Word, I created a test page, and then printed, and that did print fine. But when I did print, Windows suggested that I reinstall the printer. And so I did go out to the HP site, found my printer and that, and did the setup and reinstalled to the latest software. And the reason I did that is, yeah, my printing appeared to be working fine, but I wasn't sure about the scanner or the wireless or some of the other drivers in there. So I just thought it best to reinstall and to get things up to date to the latest version there. So after I did that, I did try my scanner. I did print from my smartphone. Everything was working. My printer, I haven't had a problem since, so everything's working there. Okay. I was also worried about, I have remote control software called TeamViewer, where I can be on another machine and control this my home PC, or I can use my home PC and connect to my work PC or to my dad's PC or other people's PCs, so I can connect to their machines to make changes, see what their screens are, different things like that. And I figured I'd have problems with that because programs like that tend to use special Windows functions and lower level routines that when you have a change in a operating system like this, those tend not to work in the new version. You have to get a version written specifically for that new Windows version. But I was able to connect fine to my work PC and to my dad's PC, and everything appeared to be fine there. And the next day I did try going the reverse direction while I was in at work. I connected back to my home PC. Everything was working fine, so hey, yeah, without an upgrade or anything there. I have an old version of Calendar Creator 10, and it was interesting when I did attempt to click on that. It wanted to reinstall the package from a CD, and I put the CD in, reinstalled it, and I'm not sure why it wanted to reinstall. I installed it. It's run fine since. Haven't had a problem with that. All the other software, I have Quicken, Picasa, Audacity, Paint.net, Skype, Google Earth, iTunes, 30, 40 plus other applications. Those all ran fine without doing any new install. So Calendar Creator was really the only one that wanted to be reinstalled for I'm not sure what reason. I did run into a problem watching video in the Edge, so going like out to YouTube and doing some stuff, and I had to load a new version of Adobe Flash Video to get that to work. But after I installed it, then videos were playing fine in the Edge and in Chrome or any of my other browsers. My MP4 files on my PC had no software associated with it. So if I went to File Manager and clicked on an MP4, it wouldn't play the song or that. So it's a case, or the video. MP4 is the video there. There was no association. So I have a package called VLC software, and I set that up. That's what I was using in Windows 7. Associated that with the MP4, and now the videos play fine there. Those are all the problems that I ran into it. Now we'll talk about, yes. The problems with dual screens and stuff like that. sometimes you can run into problems like that. Now, was this back last year in July and August, or was that recently? Okay, that's fairly recently. Some of the video cards and that are in PCs for the dual monitors or in laptops to do the dual monitor business, some of those you have to wait for the vendor to update their drivers to support the new operating system. But if you tried it just a couple of months ago, I'm surprised, that the vendor. What's that? HP? Yeah, I would have thought that HP would have supplied some drivers. Now, maybe you have to. I don't know if you looked out on the HP website to see if they have any new drivers or workarounds to get stuff to work there. So usually most of the vendors, because so many people are going through the upgrades, by this time have updated their drivers and made available versions to work with Windows 10 there. And that surprises me because, especially on Microsoft, you'd think, but I'm not sure. The only thing I can recommend there is do a Google search and see if there's some kind of workaround where you may be able to go into the registry itself and flip a true or false deal there to get it to flip and stay on there. Yes?
I bought a Windows 10 machine straight out of Best Buy. It had a 10 or 15-year-old printer. Canon said that they weren't going to have updated drivers for that old printer. They just announced it on the website. Nonetheless, I took the disk, came with the printer, and installed the printer on Windows 10. The printer works just fine. The scanner works just fine. So that may be a solution.
Yeah, you can try, look at the vendor, try doing different things. Sometimes it's a case of, it's certainly worth trying, but like the printer like I mentioned, that's a wireless printer you can buy. If you find it on sale, you can find it for $39 new. So, then it's the case of buy a brand new printer. If you've got anything that's older than 2-3 years old, it's a case of in the printer case, there's stuff, and I've seen other people that'll have other older devices that you attempt to put up. I used to have a parallel printer, and I had different cables so that I could use it with the new devices to a USB. But eventually my ink ran out, so then I got rid of that.
At $80.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll keep going here. Some of the features that I like, or the major features that I like on Windows 10 is the ability to run apps. So just like you have on your smartphone or your tablet, you have apps. You're going to be able to run most of those apps. There's a Windows app out there to do the comparable thing. And even though the Windows app library doesn't have as many as you see out on iTunes or Google Play, a lot of the mainstream applications do have Windows versions available. So check out there. And over time, there's going to be more and more stuff added because there's such a large market of Windows 10 machines out there that the app vendors are creating more of them. And Windows 10 comes with a few apps, and you can search and install those. An example there would be like the Windows Facebook app. So it looks just like you use on Facebook app on your smartphone or tablet, and it acts better than using Facebook out of a browser. So that's the reason to use an app over using a browser and doing stuff there. But just like you use all the different apps on the phones, you'll be able to use all these different apps in Windows 10. Second major feature that I like out there is I mentioned Cortana, the voice, so you can talk to it just like you currently do. Well, here I mentioned if you don't have a mic on your PC at home, buy one as soon as possible and stick a mic out there. And if you have a video, usually that comes with a mic. So if you have a little camera, a video camera, most of those come with a mic. So, you know, for as cheap as like $10, $15, you can have video and a mic there. Once you get your mic, then your desktop PC can act just like your smartphone or tablet does with Siri or Google Voice. So you saw in the demo there where ask it any question, use it to type in stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff there. It'll save you lots of time in that because you don't have to use the keyboard. And I use it all the time for searching and typing, like I mentioned. My desktop PC doesn't have a touch screen, but certainly if you have a laptop and it supports a touch screen, Windows 10 is great for that because, again, it's going to look and act just like your smartphone or tablet. Okay, should you upgrade your PC? Well, I've been running Windows 10 for about 8 months now, and other than the problems that I've listed so far, I haven't had any problems. I tell you the truth, I expected more problems because especially starting out right when it was first released last year in July, starting out there, I thought it'd take a few updates or versions to get rid of bugs in that. But like I mentioned, I haven't had really anything there. It seems that there's patches are installed to Windows 10 about every week or two. And again, you have no choice. They are going to be downloaded. They are going to be installed.
Does that mean they got like Tuesday, once a month?
Yes. On demand, anytime. There was a major release to Windows 10 back in, what was it, October or so? They don't even publicize it, really, because it's just expected, just like your phone and stuff like, well, I guess on your phone you do have the choice. On your desktop, you don't have a choice. It's going to be downloaded and installed there. And I don't mind the updates because it just means that, you know, new fixes and bugs or security is being updated. So that's fine. In general, I was, like I say, I was expecting more problems. If I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a grade of an A-. So I love the product so far, and I'd recommend it to anybody that has a Windows 10 machine to install it as soon as possible there. If you have old devices or software that were written for Windows XP, which is a 32-bit operating system, then you may need to upgrade those to more current versions or devices. If you have a device that you bought back in, you know, for an old XP 32-bit, chances are the vendor doesn't have a 64-bit driver, and you may or may not have problems trying to get that to work there. I mentioned a little earlier, most of the previous versions of Windows cost anywhere between $50 and $100 to upgrade, and most of those, if you were looking to upgrade, required either a faster CPU or more memory or things like that. This version is a little bit different because it's free, and also if you had enough hardware to run Windows 7 or Windows 8, chances are Windows 10 is going to run fine on that machine. So for most of the Windows 7 and 8 PCs out there, because it's free, because there's no cost, I do it now and I do it as soon as possible. If you do have less than 6 gigabytes of RAM, it'll run on 4 gigabytes, but if you're running on 4 gigabytes even in Windows 7, you should buy more memory and your machine will run faster. So for $20 or so, you can buy more memory, and that'll make your machine that much faster. And again, I'd recommend it at least 6 gigabytes of RAM for a Windows 10 or any machine there. We'll touch, it's currently our hour is up, so if anyone does have to go, you can go. I'm just going to touch on some of the privacy issues here. And this is come up in a number of articles, and people are going, oh, Microsoft is spying on everybody, and they're doing stuff. And like all modern operating systems, Windows 10 uses the internet to provide services that collect reports of crashes and installation failures to diagnose problems. It assigns an anonymous ID to track which applications you install and how often you use them. Collectively, all this information is called telemetry. The company doesn't collect your personal information except for the purposes of as disclosed in the privacy statement. It doesn't scan the files on your hard disk except to index them so that it can search locally, and it doesn't install a keyboard logger, keeping track of all your keystrokes. As part of the Windows as a Service model, Microsoft has designed Windows 10 to share information for product improvement, and also to share it between the devices. If you're going to have it on a tablet, if you're going to have it on a phone, it's the mechanism that's used to share it. It integrates with online services. You can't use Cortana without it taking your questions, sending it up to the server analyzing what you're asking for, and the results coming back. So Google does that. Google is constantly doing that with your searches. And so if you use Google Voice, if you use Google on any device, it's doing the exact same thing of keeping track of what you're searching for, what's trending, what sites you have been out to. So all this stuff is being collected there. And it stores and syncs the personal settings to build a personalized dictionaries for the speech and what you were looking for to improve the experience. All these options can be adjusted in the privacy settings of Windows 10. So there are, I list a website out here, and this kind of steps you through. There's probably 10 or 12 pages of settings that you can turn on or off. And you do it consciously, because some of the stuff when you turn off, then you lose flexibility. So as an example, Cortana will understand the way you ask questions and what you're looking for. And when you say, check for my sister, well, how's it going to know who your sister are if it doesn't collect that information and saying, my sister is tied to this email, or my sister is tied to this? And that's where, yes, it's collecting information, but it's trying to make it easier, and it's trying to learn. It'd kind of be like saying, you're a new baby, I'm not going to let you store anything up in the brain. You just have to react as it comes to you. No, the way you learn, the way you act, the way you can rationalize things, you have to store information to learn from experiences, to build up that dictionary so that when this question comes up, or how to define this, when I say home, where is home? Well, there has to be an address assigned to it. So it builds up that in its dictionaries and that. Okay, questions? Yes.
If you download Windows 10 before July, but don't install it until after July, does it still work?
I would guess that it will not work, because they know that, but whether that's a hard and fast date that they'll actually cut it off, my guess is that Microsoft isn't going to cut it off, because what it wants is it wants people to move to Windows 10, and they put the date out there mainly to get people to get off their butt and do it. And so that's kind of the reason. And again, what reason would you have not to do it? Yeah.
Just so that everyone is aware, if you have a child account on your computer, it does have a keylogger and extractor program on your account. It reports if you ever experience your family person.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yes.
There was an article in the PC Club published in one of the links, led to an article in PC Magazine, the extent of automatic updates in Windows 7, you will not have a choice, it will automatically download and install Windows 87 or Windows 10.
And that's untrue. So the only way Windows 10 gets installed on your machine is for you to click on the icon that you want it to then get downloaded to your PC, and then for you to click on that to actually do the install.
Okay, because according to this article, just a couple weeks ago I read it.
You'd have mass uproar.
You have automatic updates on Windows 7, according to the article.
And I have prior to going and stuff like that, most people have automatic updates turned on, especially important updates, emergency updates. So yeah, that article misstated because it doesn't automatically install. You have to choose to install. There's the icon down at the lower right-hand corner, and it'll say Windows 10, and it keeps bothering and stuff like that. There are mechanisms to turn that off. If you have determined that you never want Windows 10, just do a search, and you can turn that off so that it will stop being down there, and you'll never have a prompt to go to Windows 10. But otherwise, obviously, Microsoft is trying to get you to install Windows 10. Yes, or way in back. An icon like that, I'm not familiar. I mean, Microsoft isn't doing any Windows 10 updates that way, so that would lead me to think that, you may have, there may be some rogue site out there that's trying to... That sounds like a virus. I mean, if you can't uninstall it, that's... And certainly there's a lot of viruses out there that... yeah. Yeah. I try and Google it and see what you can find there, but...
So they say change is good, and techie types are supposed to embrace change. Is the Windows 10 user interface as good as Windows 7 and much better than Windows 8? Because millions of people hated that.
It's certainly a change there. As far as it being better, now that I'm used to it, and certainly there is a learning curve to get used to it. The start menu. First, I was looking for where's the box that I can type in and search. There is no box to type in. When you click on the start menu, you can just start typing, and it'll filter out everything that you have and show you. Also, it's alphabetical, so you have A through Z and stuff like that. So in a way, once you get used to a different list of your programs and stuff like that, I find it easier to find things there. The other thing is if you do start using things like Cortana more. So for Cortana, I can just say, start Facebook. Starts Facebook, no matter where it is. I don't have to worry about an icon. I don't have to worry about things. So, if you've used your phone and you use the voice commands on the phone, it's a natural extension there that personally I've found it easier. So that's kind of the left-hand side of the navigation of the start menu, and then on the right-hand side is kind of all the app-type things. And what you'll see there is, okay, if you have the weather, it's got the weather in there. It's got pictures, the latest pictures that you've copied or installed on the PC. It'll cycle through those in there. So there's a bunch of apps that'll do stuff there. Then over on the right-hand side, you have a whole separate panel for notifications, and that gets back to calendar entries, email coming in, sports scores, news articles, things like that will show up in your notifications there. So personally, I found it, very, very good to use. There is a learning curve because it is different there, but it's better than if you had used Windows 8 kind of was trying to force you into the application mode, and this lets you use it if you want, but you also have these other mechanisms that you can still navigate around and find things there. Yeah.
When I installed the Windows 10, probably back in August too, it worked really fine for a while. Then maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, I went to the update part and looked at the advanced thing where you can see what updates have been installed. And so there's a whole list of them that updates failed. So eventually I wound up, kind of typing in questions to Microsoft, and they eventually connected me with somebody at Microsoft, took over the computer, what they did, but they solved all of that. But I think it's worthwhile looking every once in a while to make sure the updates actually are installing, because I had no way of knowing that until I went and looked at that.
Yeah, that certainly is a good tip there. Even in previous versions of Windows, if you had turned on the automatic updates, you can run into the situation that you talked about where when it attempts to do the update, if it fails, it'll roll back and then it kind of marks it as a failed, but it continues to try and update that the next time, and it never gets past that. That can be a problem, and like you say, it's not the easiest thing to fix because in some cases you have to put in registry entries or go in and do things out of sequence to get it to update there.
I could watch what he was doing and know that. The other thing that happened just recently is the apps, like you're talking about, putting the pictures, scrolling through. What happened there was all of a sudden I noticed that wasn't working. Same way with the weather icon, if I click on that, nothing would happen. So to solve that, what I did is they restored to a previous state, which is not as easy to find on Windows 10 as it was on Windows 7.
They buried a lot of stuff down lower because in general the settings for Windows 10 are 6 boxes, and then it's unclear exactly what's below these 6, even though it has a little verbiage, and so you have to hunt around for some of the stuff.
And again, I don't know what caused that, but just referring to like a week before.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all, and we'll see you next time.